And I think no one can deny that the price of progress is high, real high.
Yes, indeed. My apology. But of course, Murphy's Law as usual. But I did prepare you for that expectation. But of course, I think we are not out of the woods. But at least I think a reasonable start over will, of course, generate. So I call this live part B of this particular live, having regard to the fact that I had to shut down all entirely. Well, that being as it may, of course, we were at a very sensitive stage, I should say, at a very international stage where, of course, people were making comparison between what is happening in other countries and the intolerance of the people as opposed, of course, to the bending backwards, the pliability of the Trinidad and Tobago population, with, of course, a group of individuals who probably, if we continue to be that pliable, continue to be that tolerant, we may end up like Sri Lanka. I think that was the conversation that we started with, and which of course was called in by, of course, the young man, and I want to thank him for that. Shift the pendulum a bit, but nonetheless, all in good spirits, all in the effort to provide information and to, of course, make people realize that we have a toxic brew here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is to say, the leadership. But yesterday, I promised that I will, of course, provide you with information, and I had two outstanding pieces of information. I think with this restart, I should, of course,
I see footprints that man have left on the sand while walking through times. I see fruits of our ambition, figments of our imaginations, and I ask myself, when will it end? When will it end? It is plain to see, universally this land is not bountiful as it was, simply because in his quest for success, nothing stands in man's way. All rivers run dry. Soon the birds will fly. The mountains will be no longer high. And when I really think of it, I just wonder why. Oh, why? I see charity deplored, equal rights totally ignored, wisdom and ingenuity working in accord, simply to afford such inventions as thermonuclear warfare and environmental warfare. And I wonder now, where do we go from here? Prophets everywhere gaze upon the horizon and declare that judgment will come as the savage hands of unscrupulous men pile everything pass by. Time is running out as we eat and drink, species at the brink of being extinct. And I think no one can deny that the price of progress is high, real high.
Yes, indeed. My apology. But of course, Murphy's Law as usual. But I did prepare you for that expectation. But of course, I think we are not out of the woods. But at least I think a reasonable start over will, of course, generate. So I call this live part B of this particular life, having regard to the fact that I had to shut down all entirely. Well, that being as it may, of course, we were at a very sensitive stage, I should say, at a very international stage where, of course, people were making comparison between what is happening in other countries and the intolerance of the people, as opposed, of course, to the bending backwards, the pliability of the Trinidad and Tobago population, with, of course, a group of individuals who probably, if we continue to be that pliable, continue to be that tolerant, we may end up like Sri Lanka. I think that was the conversation that we started with, and which, of course, was called in by, of course, the young man. And I want to thank him for that. Shift the pendulum a bit, but nonetheless, all in good spirits, all in the effort to provide information and to, of course, make people realize that we have a toxic body in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is to say, leadership. But yesterday, I promised that I will, of course, provide you with information. And I had two outstanding pieces of information. I think with this restart, I should, of course, treat with it one time. And I'm treating with, of course, the first of them. I wasn't able to get the tape, the video, when Dr. Rowley said that on that campus, I did the one with respect to Alrari children, and the fact that Dr. Rowley was prepared to send the military and his own personal bodyguard and so on under the bus for, of course, the protection of individuals who clearly across the board have been doing untold evil to Trinidad and Tobago, protected and supervised and nurtured by Rowley himself. Let's say this one. The one with respect, of course, to Rowley protecting, of course, the children of Alrari. Listen to this.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for children of the Attorney General. But I will say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them.
You know, that's what he said. He's prepared to tell the army, be the boss. That's what he's prepared to do. Let's say it again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. I will say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who would want to harm you, I'd rather be without them.
So he's prepared to be without, I mean, to protect his Attorney General, whose children, as you see them there, were all over the internet and the social media platforms, holding high-powered rifles and of course guns and weapons. And Rowley is saying that the army put his Attorney General then, children and their lives in danger, and because he believed then that the army was the ones that
officer would have breached a level of security.
He believed that it was the army that sent these photos to social media, and he is prepared to throw them under the bus. I told you so yesterday, and of course I have delivered this one, but I'm yet to find the one with respect, of course, to when he said that milk and honey was flowing under Kamala Prasad, when the question was asked if people are better off under Rowley than they were under Kamala Prasad Bisesa. I want to make it clear and very pellucid and very conspicuous that this is about verification. This is about the veracity of what they are saying, and if it is that they get the truth and they still want to be in denial, I do. But my duty is to get the facts to you.
And has created a threat for children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd be without them.
He's prepared to be without them for his Attorney General. Understand the mafia, understand the collective of wrongdoers, understand the fact that the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, in conjunction with the PNM organization, has now become a criminal enterprise. Last night, of course, we talked about the whole question of captive government, and we were talking about Jacob Zuma in South Africa. But certainly, what we have is a cabinet ostensibly elected.
That officer has breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about National Security Services. Because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who would want to harm you, I'd rather be without them,
That's what is happening here. Let's say it again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about National Security Services. Because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who would want to harm you, I'd rather be without them, I'd rather be without them.
Again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about National Security Services. Because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who would want to harm you, I'd rather be without them, I'd rather be without them.
They say it again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about National Security Services. Because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them.
So he is prepared to forsake the army, those people who are supposed to protect the office holder of Prime Minister. He is prepared to throw them under the bus for his our Attorney General, that up to today has not claimed that those children holding those high power items, weapons, belong to him. He has abandoned his own children. The Attorney General of the former Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago was not prepared to say that those children are his. But the defender of wrongdoing, the defender of corruption, a most despicable, heinous individual who would stop at nothing to put pain, ache, agony on the poor and defenseless. The trade union movement would have taken some time to recognize who he really is. Having mounted that tiger, and dismounted, we had to create what I consider to be an incentive institution called the stakeholders. And in conjunction with some 104.7, the government report, real media, and of course the corridor transformation, we have achieved that goal. The next stage of this war that was led by Rowley and his government and his cabinet against the people is to deal the final blow. And so you will not see me on the Ground Report tomorrow morning either this whole week, because I am on special assignment. But Friday, possibly, or weekend, you will know what that was all about. But war against the people and innocent people, as we are seeing in Ukraine when Russia was invaded that country, the people are resisting so much so that Russia is now rethinking or had a second thought, Putin and talking about the president there, as to whether or not he miscalculated. Well, Rowley and they must understand that they have miscalculated and misjudged the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and their resolve to not only resist, but take action to get rid of them. I am not talking about physical war here. I am talking about tact, strategy, the use of the law, and of course the constitutional right to protest. We saw, of course, on 2 Sundays so far, the trade union movement with the motorcades as they joined forces with the pushback movement, the corridor transformation, 104.7, the Ground Report, Real Media TT, set a sensibility, and I want to commend, of course, and demonstrate in no small measure my respect and deep appreciation of Robert Amar for his understanding, as we have, of the challenge and the threat the existential danger that Rowley and his government has placed Trinidad and Tobago. And if we have to do it as we have been doing every night, every day, certainly we will expose whatever the challenge may be. And so even though the internet might have been given problems, I still go to, of course, pray and of course pursue, because there's nothing gained when you do not have a start. The longest journey begins with a single step. And I remember, of course, the poem, Stand at the foot, gazing at the sky. How do you get up if you never try? You better try and fail than fail to try. And as I've said yesterday, you have a whole responsibility. Write it to your council, write it to your parliamentarian, write it to international institutions. I have exposed a number of them, and during the course of the week, I will be sharing addresses and including email addresses and names, so that you too can write to whether it be regional institutions, whether it be CARICOM in Guyana, the headquarters, whether it be the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights based in the United States, whether it be ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America, on matters of economic nature, of course, if that is your area and your concern. The OAS, the Organization of American States, you must also, of course, write them. You must also feel, of course, because in New York there, the United Nations building where, of course, the houses of the United Nations Secretary General and the Secretariat. You must also, of course, focus on human rights matter, both at the level of the United Nations and, of course, the Geneva headquarters, with respect, of course, to human rights matters, and that this government has been in more ways than one, even using and abusing the Constitution by, of course, trying to take matters that would otherwise be a constitutional one, and then, of course, want to pass a law with just a very slim, a tenuous majority. We must look at the International Criminal Court, because, as I said, the whole question that you run to side and causing people to come out, citizens of this country come out, to take things that never existed, and only contested that, and until he believed that he must not pay a price for killing so many of our enemy, of the 4,000, nearly 200 that have died from COVID. We can safely say that at least 2/3 of that are elderly. And one of the major events that created that situation was when he told them to come out because he has vaccine. And then, of course, leave them in the rain and the sun. It was Good Samaritan, Good Trinidadians who, of course, provided tents and chairs. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say, I'm wrong with what's right?
Yeah.
I'm saying shuttle, because I am not shuttle towards two people. I never believe in them. I tell me go on the shoot. That's why I never believe in PM, right? And I want to say something I have like everyone saying this, but I'm going to say it anyhow, right? These, so, well, how to say it? Black people in the whole, African people in the whole. I feel like when they want, there's many others. There's many others who need, ones them have, right? If I go to Canada, they have the time to beg and far, they don't know the people. They tell them, I receive call from nothing. Nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. You tell me no.
All right or wrong. You ever hear people say, call Kamala and offer and never get through, or this thing get through? You never hear me. And this woman, I don't know about this question. I don't care what anybody says, overset the people is racist people. And I say that here, the people is racist people. Because Mother Burney, with her own mouth, was on UNC, there's a foot and say that. Well, I see it, and put some kind of wall. Before you all election, we can take over, right? If you understand about CBN, we take over. And they know that. And the people are looking for their country. And you can see always doing something, and still, nobody in the PNM, nobody in Tobago would never even give you Kamala a chance. Don't know what people are doing, right? Yeah. The border of Kamala will take the land and take away this from them. I don't get nothing. But who's the from them? Is the own kind, the own, right? So the people are saying racism and the vote in the own kind. What remember is. Yeah, you hear what happened to something expensive? Tell them, look for that. Right now,
That's indeed. Clearly, that's an emotive individual, and she's such an emotive subject. But I want to answer it, and then we move back to the issue of how toxic and how dangerous Rowley and his government is. And for to play again his defense of Al-Rari and his children. Al-Rari himself, of course, ignoring, defying, or in terms, not acknowledging those children when it was appropriate. He has abandoned them. Something like the PNM abandoned people for their own minded, and so of course 1% and themselves, the part are also incorporated in that 1%. But I want to say what the caller just said has not lost its essence or the argument of that caller. I'm talking about Kamala and the NC. They have recognized that. See, it is not an accident that they will not, of course, contest a seat in Tobago. It's not an accident. They recognize that. They recognize that people of Tobago wants to, of course, have their own autonomy. And whether they have a unified racial group, in this case, Africans, in the majority. The fact of the matter is that today, as we speak, the Tobago population, the society of Tobago, recognizes that the PNM under Rowley in particular in this case, but as I said, because it was not as intense as it is now under the previous Prime Minister talking about, of course, Patrick Manning. And we go historically back, of course, to Eric Williams that ignored Tobago largely because Tobago did not at one point hear anything about PNM and Eric Williams. So that is a long-standing to and foreign antagonistic relationship between the PNM and the Tobago. But of course, we agree and accepted that until recently, some 20 years, the PNM had foreign in Tobago. But what I saw, in fact, not only was there a 14-1 traction for the PNM, and of course, in effect, telling Rowley to stay in Trinidad, and Trinidad will telling Rowley to go on some kind of cloud and live over Trinidad and Tobago, preferably over the Bocas on some cloud, where you can get some terra firma. He puts a big stone and live there, because he will be a man of no abode, a man with no nation. That is how ugly and how dangerous and how betrayed the population of both Tobago and the fields. But the issue of whether or not the Tobagonians are racial, I think that was the essence of her concern, and she was disappointed. Well, I want to tell her that that notion is a function of the PNM organization. The results of the last election won, and if you observe the campaign, you would have seen that before the 6-6 arrangement, which was second, of course, with the 14-1 results, you would have seen that in Tobago, the PNM organized in the campaign handles, pamphlets, posters with what's a joke in the middle of campaign and a number of unity officials, executive and otherwise, to suggest that Mr. Duke was, of course, playing to the fancy of the UNC. The people disregarded that. The people denounced that. I will also tell you, I know you're coming from as well, you're saying that's the calculation. I know you're talking that. And of course, that in effect caused the rejection of the UNC cannot side. I know that it was a very embarrassing position for the UNC. I'm glad it's some occasion because it was the UNC at the time, and then of course to get to the top, which was part of the partnership, to get a foothold in the Tobago, or to regain a foothold, and lost completely, no problem. Over time, like today, just like the trade unions, and just like so many thousands of persons who had reposed their trust in the PNM, and then they cannot wait to get them out of office by simply utilizing this. And the Tobagonians are doing because of COVID and the lockdown. They said in no uncertain terms that, listen, we now realize that the PNM was on a course to destroy us. You ever say? They realized that the PNM was on a course to destroy them. What are the evidence? Very simple. Rowley mashed up the sea bridge. You're quite right, ma'am. The cost of living over there is almost 10 times more than that of Trinidad and Tobago. And imagine when you can't get goods, what's going to happen? People are going to hoard it. People are going to, of course, keep it until prices rise. Because, of course, there are those who are very exploitative. There are those who, of course, are very mischievous and therefore are going to take advantage of the higher prices because of the scarcity, especially of basic items. So that's an economic and, of course, commercial thing, and, of course, people's conscience. But the point I'm making is that it was the PNM that mashed up the sea bridge. The result of that was the destruction of the economy of Tobago. Because they were saying all the time, the PNM, that the Indians are no good. They were saying that, of course, every Indian that you see is corrupt. They try to make you believe that those Indians in the PNM are different ones, etc. When we know that those Indians are really acclimatized and have become PNMized, and therefore are part and parcel of that conspiracy to steal, to dislodge, to engage in devilish activities, to destroy the middle class. Any Indian in the PNM, they cannot enter the UNC. And they enter the PNM only because they want, as Rowley and them want, unmerited access to fame, fortune, wealth, and of course being in the offices of power. That's all. Has nothing to do with anything else. Because they can't go further. And they failed in the, and will not be accepted, of course, in the so-called Indian-based party. But that's a different story. The point I'm making is that for Tobagonians realized that PNM was out to destroy them. They mashed the economy, mashed up the sea bridge, and then come back out and bring 2 boats and put it in an airport and saying, you see, I love you. It's like putting a dagger in a person's heart and telling them, I love you. You won't die. When you put it in or you put it out, you know what the outcome will be. But that is how Tobago felt and feel. Because they realized that it was the Indians that were coming to Tobago to spend and to stay in the bed and breakfast, stay in the guest houses, stay in small hotels, stay in the big hotels, of course, and of course spend their money in terms of recreation by the beaches, as indeed by whatever river or natural features that they would of course gravitate to in Tobago. So they understand. So I want you not to be perturbed. Not to be perturbed. Not to be perturbed. And the UNC is conscious. So they have said more than Trinidad, if the Tobagonians want autonomy, more than what they have, the UNC is prepared to give them. But the UNC will be the next government because it's 29 seats in Trinidad. They only have 2 seats. So we know. So don't be perturbed. Don't be perturbed. Don't be perturbed. What you are experiencing is a propaganda in overdrive, courtesy the PNM. That's what that is about. And they cannot yet recognize that the Tobagonians have in fact recognized who they are. Remember, the most telling example of that fact is that Rowley is from Tobago, and they have rejected him as head of PNM. Understand that? So don't be perturbed, my dear. Don't be perturbed. I thought it was important for us to do that, to make that intervention. But let's go back, of course, as I said, to Dr. Rowley sending even the army below the bus for his minister and no good, a rapscallion, opportunist, a greedy, avarice individual, as part of this kleptocratic construct, organized, manufactured, and constructed by Rowley, the arch evil, the devil personified in Trinidad and Tobago. Don't be perturbed. Don't be perturbed. At the end of the day, Trinidad will, and the Parliament will be run and
see footprints that man have left on the sand while walking through time. I see fruits of our ambition, figments of our imagination, and I ask myself, when will it end? When will it end?
That officer will have reached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who will want harm you, I'd rather be without them.
You hear that? That is what he said. He's prepared to throw the army into the bus. That's what he's prepared to do. Say again.
That officer would have breached a level of security that has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who will want harm you, I'd rather be without them.
So he's prepared to be without the army to protect his Attorney General, who's trying, as you see there, all over the internet and the social media platforms, holding high-powered rifles and of course, guns and weapons. And how he's saying the army is Attorney General then. Children now in danger. And thus, he believed then that the army was the one that he believed that it was the army that sent these photos to social media, and he's prepared to put them on the bus. I told you so yesterday, and of course I have delivered this one, but I'm yet to find the one with respect, of course, to when he said that Bill Clinton was flowing on the Cameron and Bissessa. When the question was asked if people are better off under Rowley than they were under Cameron and Bissessa, I want to make it clear, and very polluted and very conspicuous, that this is about verification. This is about the veracity of what we are saying, and if it is, and to get the truth, and to see what it be denied is you. But my duty is to get the facts to you.
And has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them.
He is prepared to be without them. For his Attorney General, understand the mafia, understand the collective of wrongdoers, understand the fact that the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, in conjunction with a PNM organization, has now become a criminal enterprise. That's of course we talked about the whole question of captive government, and we're talking about Jacob Zuma in South Africa. But certainly, what we have is a cabinet ostensibly elected.
That officer has breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them, I'd rather be without them.
That is what is happening here. Let's say it again.
That officer will have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them, I'd rather be without them.
Again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who want to harm you, I'd rather be without them, I'd rather be without them.
They say it again.
That officer would have breached a level of security and has created a threat for the children of the Attorney General. But I want to say something about national security services, because if you lose confidence in the people around you who are to safeguard you from those who would want to harm you, I'd rather be without them,